feels like the draft. Draft me, draft me, draft me, draft me. Draft me, draft me, draft me, draft me. Draft me, draft me, draft me, draft me. Draft, draft, draft. Draft me, draft me, draft me, draft me. Draft me, draft me, draft me, draft me. Draft me, draft me, draft me, draft me. It feels like the draft, 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 draft. Ba-da-da-ba-ba-ba. Da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da. It feels like Miami.
Miami, 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 Miami.
It feels like Miami.
Welcome to the Heat Beat Podcast. I'm your host tonight, Franky G. With me today is my Draft Beat co-host, my boy Saucy Takes. How you doing today, Lou?
Oh man, I'm excited, man. We get to talk some NBA Cup today. We have a special guest on the show, which I'm gonna allow you to introduce, of course. And it's just the vibes are high.
Vibes are especially high. Shout out to Nico for that game winner. Great performance by him, Tyler, Locksmith, and the boys to get a big, crucial, much needed road victory against the tough Minnesota Timberwolves. But as you mentioned, we have a very special guest today. My friend from 5 Reasons Sports, Matt Hanifan. Matt, how you doing today, boys?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. Thank you for having me on as always, man. I love everything that y'all do over here. So thank you for having me on, man.
It's a pleasure, man. We're big fans of yours. Lou just found out who you were 20 minutes ago. I'm just playing. But we are also introducing a very new sponsor to the Heat Beat podcast, Robinhood. This episode is presented by Robinhood. You'll hear an ad read later on, and we have a special segment for them. But today we're going to be talking a little bit about the season at large. Just so far, we're I think we're 9 games in. Yeah, 9 games in. About to start the NBA season, the NBA Cup. So it's perfect time to discuss a little recap of just where the Heat stand right now and what do they need to move forward. Lou, your thoughts on the season at large? Anybody you want to talk about in particular as well?
Yeah, I mean the season's been largely, I want to say, like, it's been kind of a disappointment to some degree. It's been an unfortunate season. Jimmy going down doesn't make it any better, especially if we're talking about this current iteration of their build. But there are, if we want to talk about one guy, I think it has to be Tyler Hero. He's done everything and more that we've asked from him, especially offensively. Defensively, I think he looks improved. He feels improved. Obviously, never going to be a great defender, but you got to just live with a C- kind of C at best kind of defender, and he's been that for the majority of the season. But offensively, his pacing, his play style, his pull-up threes, no more long twos, all that stuff is really, really coming, and just really he's legitimately the engine on offense, at least with the starters. He has been, particularly in that first quarter.
That much deserved and much wanted leap for Tyler Hero it seems like it's finally here. Matt, your thoughts on the season and Tyler in particular?
Tyler's now doing stuff that we wanted him to do over the past couple of years with like his shot diet, him playing more of a spot up role. But even then, like, I just think the usage has just been better. Like, yeah, there's still the turnovers that happen. There's still some times where he goes up against bigger, longer defenders where he, struggles to get to the rim and whatnot. but I think he's just finishing from all areas at like a higher clip. And he's just like no one's revolted their game or revamped their game more than him on this team this year. And that's to some extent has come at the expense of Bam not playing as well, Jimmy not playing as well, obviously Terry not playing as well. He's kind of had to take that charge. And so like when you say that Tyler's been the best player on the team, I think it's a huge indictment on how good he's actually been, in addition to how some of the other players have disappointed to some extent. But the season so far, like, to me, it just feels very mediocre-ish.
Mhm.
Like they're 4-5. They're middle of the league in net rating. They're, 18th in offense, 15th in defense. Like, yeah, they're creating deflections like they weren't last year. But they're not beating good teams. I mean, they did beat Minnesota last night, but largely they just haven't beaten good teams. They've come close a couple of times, but whether it's, rebounding, whether it's poor free throw shooting late, like they haven't quite gotten the job done in certain games. And that obviously needs to be fixed over an 82-game season. There's still a whole lot of season left. Obviously, Haywood is someone that I've been impressed with late. It was nice to have Kevin Love back. I know Nico responded from being, benched at the end of the Denver game, and now he was this team's second leading scorer yesterday, in kind of a really bad offensive game just in general from everyone involved. Just an ugly performance, and like NBA fans weren't tuning in to Minnesota, Miami for great offensive basketball.
No, absolutely not.
And so like those are just a few players that I want to shout out. Jaquez is another where it's like I know his scoring numbers aren't the same as it was last year, or at least when he was cooking last year, but he's been eating dudes up on the glass. Like I think that's one of the more under talked about things. Like he's averaging like 7.5 rebounds a game. I know this team's had a difficulty defensive rebounding at certain points, but when he's in the game, there hasn't been that big of a problem with him rebounding. And so those are just a few guys that I want to shout out, but it just feels like a mediocre start in general, if that makes sense.
For sure. This is the epitome of a mid team right now. Like you mentioned, their net rating 16th in the league, according to Basketball Reference. They're 4-5. Alf talked about it yet last night, but if they were in the Western Conference, they would be the 11th seed. They're just very fortunate that they're fighting for home court right now on in the East, with only 3 teams being at 500, only 2 of them being above 500 in the Eastern Conference. But yeah, they're just very average as the start, and I think honestly they're fortunate to be where they are right now. They should be better, but with the Jimmy injury, the Jaquez, the Love injuries, and personal situations going on, Bam's awful start to the season, Nico and Terry also struggling, whether it's their usage, their lineup situations. They've just had a lot go wrong, and to be at 4-5 is pretty solid right now. But like, let's give Tyler his flowers. This is from Cooper Moorhead from the Miami Heat. We're working with a limited sample size still, but you can plainly see how Tyler Hero's shot profile has changed with the gaps in the mid range. And like you can see, we have the visual here of his last season shot chart versus this season, and just the areas between about 16 feet out from the paint to the 3-point line has been eliminated. He is barely taking any shots there. I tweeted about it earlier. Tyler's, his career high in true shooting percentage is 56.6%. His career average is 56.1. Right now, he stands at 65.9%. Like, I don't think he'll stay there because that's a really elite number. But and that's a lot to ask of him. Like, he's gonna have some slumps, and they'll defend him differently and stuff. But amazing start. This is easily the best stretch of his career, and it's great to see like some real impactful changes to his game and shot profile that I feel like, well, if he just sticks to this and keeps cutting his hair, give me that fade forever, Tyler, and I like the way I like the cut of your jib right now. But let's get into the real important part, because the NBA Cup is here. And I think, like it's not stated enough how awesome this is. I'm one of the people who's a huge proponent of it. I'm not a big soccer fan, but I appreciate that there's multiple tournaments and stuff like that. That's what I saw. I coached high school basketball, and we had winter tournaments, we had summer league tournaments, we had obviously the regular season division and district titles and stuff like that. But there's more to play for than just that, and I felt like the NBA was lacking that. So I love the NBA Cup. I love the idea. It's taking a lot of people a little bit to adjust to it. But Lou, let's start with our new segment on Robinhood. First question: bearish or bullish? The NBA Cup. How do you feel about it?
Oh man, it's 100%. I'm 100% bullish on it. Like, it is such a fantastic way to, even if it's just 4 games of impactful basketball to start the season. 4 games where teams are going really, really, hard at it head to head. It is so refreshing because, we haven't really had high stakes basketball since July, realistically speaking. Like the NBA in general, us obviously since May, but that's a different story. But regardless, it's been about 6 months since we've had impactful basketball besides the summer league. That's impactful to me.
Yeah,
Pella
Larson, of course.
Yeah, of course. But no, it gives us something to root for in the middle of the season. Every team is in it. It's fair playing grounds for every single team. You get 4 games against against your group. Basically, the best 4 teams advance. The best 2 out of group A, B, and C, and then the other 3 groups as well. The top 2 teams advance, as well as the top 3 teams from each group, as well as the best second place team advances. So it's 4 teams and 4 teams that advance. It's just so much nicer than having nothing, than just playing a regular game a Tuesday in November against the Pistons. Now it has meaning to that game, and it's nice to see. Obviously we got word that Jimmy's not playing tomorrow. It's going to be nice to see how some of these kids, how some of the young guys can impact winning at that level. It's not quite playoffs, but I think it's probably the closest thing to the playoffs besides being in them. So it's nice to see that.
And you said bullish. I think you meant bearish, that you're in on this.
My bad.
No, it's okay.
Not a stocks guy. Leave that to Highsmith.
Exactly. Shout out to Locksmith there. But yeah, just to explain, for those who don't know, bearish, you're buying it, you're in on it. Bullish, you're out. I'm full bearish on the NBA Cup. I love the competitiveness. I love that they have different courts. I love that they have different uniforms for this. Like, let's make this a big deal. I wish it was just like a straight tournament. Actually, Chad is telling me I'm wrong. Bullish is correct.
I didn't want to say anything, but I was just like, wait.
I had to Google it, Frankie. I was like, I don't know.
My bad, sponsor Robinhood. We will delete this and do it all over again. Just kidding. But I'm completely bullish on it. I want the competitive drive. The only thing I wish they did was just make it like a straight tournament. Like, give me 2-3 weeks and just do it in a row. I don't like the in and out of the NBA Cup, but I love everything else about it. Matt, bearish or bullish NBA Cup? What are your thoughts?
Oh, I'm bullish on it. I don't think I think the NBA's incentive to some extent was to introduce something to someone who doesn't necessarily watch basketball. I was like, oh, this is you're trying to attract new fans. And I don't know if it's necessarily going to do that, but it just adds more of an incentive for people like us, the sickos like us who like basketball and who watch stuff. Like, some of the most competitive games last year, at least in the early portion of the season, were these in-season tournament games. Like the Heat Bucks, for example. I think that was the last Heat in-season tournament game that they had. I think Knicks Bucks was another one. Heat Knicks. I'm just using the Heat as an example here, but some of their best games last year were these kind of games, and there's the extra incentive. Okay, my team's 2-1 heading into the last game. What are the different combinations that needs to happen for them to advance to the knockout stage? Stuff like that. It just adds more interest to it. And then once you get to the final 8 and then the final 4 in Vegas, and it continues to add intrigue and Thank God we don't have to see those red courts again. Like they actually modified the court to where it makes it a little more bearable on the eyes.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
but no, I'm definitely in on this because it adds early season intrigue. And I know, some people are like, oh, it's, game 11 or whatever. Like it doesn't matter. It's just like, to some extent, these games matter. Like I hope the winner of this year's isn't like the Lakers and hangs the banner for winning the in-season tournament. But at the same time, like it's still pretty cool if you actually, get to that stage and if you even win that. It just something that you can hold your hat on for something that you did in game 30 or whatever. But no, like I'm very in on this for all the intrigue for us sickos out there who watch all these games and is invested in all of these games. So no, I love it. I love it.
Safe to say that Matt is bearish on the courts from last year.
Yeah, very bearish on the courts.
Yeah, no, I hear you on that. No, I completely agree with you guys. But let's talk about the Heat in particular for this season. Last season, a lot of competitive games. Fortunately, they did not make it out of group play. That Knicks game they blew, and then they couldn't make up the point differential in the last game. And lost as well, I believe. But they have an opportunity, like Lou, like you said, to play the young guys. Jimmy's going to miss at least these first couple games. He's already listed out for tomorrow versus the Pistons. They have the Pacers on Friday night as well. Two big opportunities. Already played the Pistons early this year. Talk about their other opponents in their group, and if you're bearish or bullish on them making it out of group play this year.
So first of all, let's start off with their group. Obviously, they have the Pistons on Tuesday, and then they have the Pacers on Friday. The other two teams in their group, they're going to be playing in 2 weeks from next Tuesday, and 2 weeks from this Tuesday, and 2 weeks from this Friday, and it's going to be the Bucks and the Raptors. So they're essentially, these two games are must win. We've seen the Bucks; they've been a little bit iffy. So I mean, realistically, it's so tough. This is a hold for me. Frankie. I don't want to buy. I don't want to sell. I'm just gonna wait. I'm just gonna wait and see because it's tough to be in either direction. Jimmy's obviously injured, but technically speaking, the Pistons should be an easy game. The Raptors should be an easy game. The Bucks will never know, and the Pacers are technically the hardest game. So it's tough to see and gauge from the 9 games that we have seen of this team, what team is going to show up tomorrow? What team is going to show up on Friday? They might be completely two different teams that show up, one tomorrow, one on Friday, because that's just what we've been giving so far this season. So, I mean, if I had to pick one, I would guess I'm bearish on them and the Cup, but I am bullish for the young guys getting some playing time. And just even if it's competitive and it means something, these are the games that you want, somebody to step up who is unexpected, or somebody that is just a surprise, whether it's Nico, whether it's Jaime, whether it's Larson, whether it's Ware, one of these guys to just give you some solid minutes in one of these games and maybe impact the quarter or impact their stint in a positive direction, so you can have something to look forward to with this team.
Yeah, I 100% agree. It's kind of like the playoffs in that, each guy, like any guy on your roster and your rotation can win you a game. Like we remember the Mike Miller's missing shoe, hitting 5 or 6 threes. We remember Rio in game 7 hitting the buzzer beater at the end of the third quarter. Shane hitting 6 threes. Guys having their moments. And this could be like that, like in that. Alec Burks randomly has a big 4 3-point quarter or something like that. Matt, bearish or bullish on the Heat's chances of making out of the NBA Cup in 2024?
This is an interesting spot because I'm looking at it right now. Funny enough, the Heat have the best net rating amongst the teams in their group. Like the Heat are 17th in net rating. Detroit's right behind them at 18. Indiana's at 21. Milwaukee's at 22, and Toronto's at 25. I don't know if that will mean anything in the end. It's the middle of a long road trip for Miami, so like this is their 4th and 5th game of a long road trip, and then eventually they'll play the other 2 teams at home later. But like I don't know how much that will play into things. It feels like when Jimmy's not there, I know Jimmy's their biggest needle mover, per Pat's words, not mine, but regardless. It feels like they play freer without him sometimes when they're on the court. Like there's not as much stagnation. Like they're just able to play freer in both the half court and transition. I don't know how much that will make a difference in one of these types of games, especially when the young guys are playing like Jovic, like Larson. Ware had his best game yesterday. Who knows if that continues? Like there's just a lot of variables for not just Miami, but for all of these teams too. I'm not particularly bullish. Like I'll think they'll get second probably. But then it comes down to like, I think what Group C, don't they have Cleveland and Boston? Like it feels like you're going to have to really outpoint differential one of those two teams if you want to make it, into the final 8. And I don't know if that's necessarily going to happen unless if the Heat, blow out the Raptors by like 20, 25 points. If they, dominate Detroit which never happens, or dominate who's the other team or
The Bucks, the Raptors.
Oh, yeah. I lost my train of thought for a second. If they blow out one of those two teams, like if that I don't think that's going to happen, but if that does happen, the Bucks have been one of the worst teams in the league, so who knows if that's going to continue. I'm not particularly bullish on it, but for the sake of conversation, I'll say bullish.
That's fair. I definitely think the point differential does not play to their favors. They're a team that they are the epitome of survive and advance. And that's great in March Madness. Shout out to Matt and his Mountain West Conference obsession. But not so great in NBA Cup where you need to win by a certain amount and lead to get tiebreakers in all these situations. And the Miami Heat, they could be in a dogfight with the 95 Bulls. They could be in a dogfight with the 9-win Charlotte Bobcats. Like it does not matter. Nothing stops them from being inconsistent and playing down or up to the other teams' levels. I'm kind of bullish on it just because of the way they responded yesterday, and I think this kind of last night big win. And I feel like they could be riding some momentum into this cup. I don't think it'll be easy at all. The Pacers especially have given them a lot of trouble. But when you have the Raptors and Pistons and the Bucks, who they've played really well, especially Tyler recently, his last few years, he's done really well in that matchup. I like it. I think they have a good chance to win it. Would I be surprised if they made it out? No. Would I be surprised if they finished third? No, as well. So it is what it is. But let's just say in the hypothetical, they make it out of this cup. Are you bearish or bullish, Lou, on them making it to Vegas and winning it all?
It's gonna be matchup dependent. I'm gonna say I'm bearish on it. I just don't see this team. That's 5 straight games that we need them to be good, Frankie. That matter. man, I love this team more than I probably should at this point. But just I'm just playing the odds here. I have not seen them put together 5 straight games of competitive basketball. The good thing is this isn't just in 1 week, and they have some games to get the bat out in between. So that's a positive sign. But am I comfortable with them getting to Vegas? I'm just gonna have to say no. I do think that this is one of the weaker groups, so that plays to their advantage. And they just got to come out and show it, man. Because the Pacers were in the finals last year in the Cup tournament against the Lakers, or they made it pretty far. If it wasn't the finals, I know that they made it pretty far because they came out and they were just young, running, snappy. It's going to be interesting to see how this team responds to this change in play style in particular. So, especially with Jimmy out, at least tomorrow.
For sure. And like you said, the Pacers were a matchup nightmare in that in that cup last year. Teams like that could give a lot of teams problems. It reminds me of March Madness. Like if you have a team that has issues there and they get the right matchups, and and they can play to their advantage, and you can't play to their advantage, you might have trouble, and they might make a sneaky little run. George Mason comes to mind. Miami's versatility defensively, and their abnormal amount of shooting guards doesn't really strike me as that quite that versatile team. But when you're missing Jimmy already, they have minutes to play for, opportunity to play for each other, and we saw. And I think Kevin Love being back is sneaky great for this team's chemistry. So I wouldn't be surprised if they won the whole thing. I wouldn't be surprised if they go winless. This team is the ultimate wild card. Shout out to Charlie from Always Sunny. Matt, bearish or bullish on their opportunity if they make it out of group play to win the whole cup?
It would be very Miami Heat to win the in-season tournament and still win like 45 games, because that's what they do to torture us. I'm not like, what kind of Bam am I getting? What kind of Terry am I getting? What kind of player X am I getting? I think that's my biggest question.
I can't promise you what Bam we'll get, but I can promise you this is probably the worst Bam I've ever seen. So maybe there's only going up from here.
At least you hope. Again, like, they don't have a good track record of beating good teams. Not to say that Indiana or Milwaukee isn't good. I know I just said I was bullish on them a minute ago, but like, if I'm asking them to beat like the Knicks, or if I'm asking them to beat like Cleveland or Boston, like, I'm not there. Like, I think they can make it competitive, sure, but you need a better Bam, you need a better Terry, you need a better all of these guys outside of Tyler. If Jimmy's healthy, you need a better Jimmy. Like, I know it's not Jimmy's forte to play well in November and December, but you're going to need it in these types of games if you want to make it to Vegas and if you want to win the in-season tournament. So I'm going to say bearish, just because, like, to your guys' point, I don't know what team I'm getting from game one from game to game. I just don't know. And
not knowing what team you're getting, I think that's like the perfect encapsulation of the Heat the last 2 seasons, like last 3 seasons, honestly, because this team was in a dog. We were Lou, we were talking on the play-in night where, like, against the Bulls, hey, if they lose, we get a chance at Wemby. That team made it all the way to the finals, pulled off one of the biggest upsets in round 1 and the Eastern Conference Finals. And like, this team, it just doesn't know when to quit, and then sometimes doesn't know that there's a game scheduled right now. Guys, come on, like, let's start playing some defense. Let's start hitting some shots. I think we've said a lot about the NBA Cup. We've reviewed the season at so far, but it's still young. This isn't even a quarter of the season. Lou, I know we've talked a lot privately about letting the kids play. Let's talk about Nico, Pele, Jaime. Let's get into the young guys, and just what do you want to see from them moving forward in this upcoming stretch, with likely Jimmy missing some time. Who do you want to see step up, get the minutes, and get more shots and all that?
It's gonna be Jaime. It's gonna be Jaime, the guy that I need to see. Like, just like a little bit of a preview to tomorrow's game. We played the Pistons before this year. We won by 8. It wasn't a game we played particularly well in, but it was one of Jimmy's most efficient games. He had 23 points on 11 shots, got to the free throw line 11 times as well. And a lot of his production came late in that fourth quarter. Obviously, I'm not saying Jaime is Jimmy or anything like that, but when I just think of somebody else who can punish mismatches and really attack some of the smaller guards that Detroit is going to put out there on the floor, it has to be him. It has to be him. Like, he has to come out here and really force the Pistons' hands. I think they might be without Darren. He's questionable, so that'll be a blessing for Miami as well, because he absolutely demolished them the first game, especially on the offensive glass. But in terms of like the young guys, like I think, Nico, a lot was said about Nico losing his starting spot. Not a lot was said that was the most minutes he's played in November. Like, just because he went to the bench doesn't mean he's out of the rotation. And I think that's a very key element. And it was something privately I know me and Frankie talked about. Nico doesn't work with the starters because the starters don't work with Nico. It's just like oil and water. It does not mix. But Nico with some of these bench guys, with some of this bench unit in general, with Duncan, with the Jaimes, with the Larson, with the Highsmiths from time to time, really gets to showcase his basketball IQ as well as his ability to hub from time to time at the top and find these cutters, because these guys all know how to move without the ball in a way that the starters necessarily don't. So I'm curious just to see what version of Nico can he continue, extend what he did yesterday against Minnesota, and can Jaime really hone in and find himself for the first time all season, I guess, to that degree that we were used to around last year, November and December, where he really, really kicked it up a gear. Can he hit that gear against Detroit? Because I think there's an opportunity to be had, and there are shots to be had against this Detroit team that, necessarily he's the one who should be putting pressure on the rim. He's the one who should be, picking up where Jimmy left off.
For sure. And we know Jaime has missed some time with some stomach issues and getting back into game speed and conditioning. Still was disappointed. He only got 16 minutes. Josh got 20. And I would love that 20 minutes to all be divided between Jaime and Pele, especially. And even some Duncan if you can. But, that first matchup against Detroit, let's dive back into that a little bit. Jimmy led the way, 23 points, 7 assists, 4 rebounds, 4 steals. Bam had one of his better games. Didn't score a lot, but 12 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals, 3 blocks. That's filling up the stat sheet. Tyler, this was one of the rare games he had a bad shooting night. Actually, I'm looking from. This
was his worst shooting game.
This was his worst shooting game. I thought I was looking at last year's game, but no. Tyler went 7 for 20, had 19 points, did contribute 6 assists, 4 rebounds, and a steal. Terry, 20 points. Jaime, this is one of his early games that he got to play a lot. 12 points, 9 rebounds. Matt, you mentioned his rebounding success this year. I like the Jaime pick. Is he your pick as well? Is there anybody else from the young guys you think is key to step up for tomorrow night?
I'm looking at Jaime just because he is the facsimile of Jimmy Butler. He plays most like Jimmy compared to anyone else on this team. And this was probably his best game of the season, if we're being completely honest. And the fact him just getting to his mid post spots, getting those touches, making the most of it, getting those reps off the bench against some of these guys. I think he can really take advantage of that now that he has a couple games under his belt since coming back from the illness. And so I'm looking for him specifically, but the same thing with Nico that Lou pointed out. The thing with Jovic to start this year was kind of what I thought when Jaime started last year. They were putting him in the corner a lot. They were making him spot up from deep, and they weren't really utilizing him to his strengths. And I think once you saw yesterday when Nico was running the second unit, or not maybe not running the second unit, but contributing heavily in the second unit. He was getting touches in the pick and roll. He was getting those reps in, and then he was creating deflections on the defensive end. He was getting out in transition. He was doing all the things that you want him to do, in addition to making, a couple 3-pointers. And that was just something that was really that was not something that we've really seen from him this season. We saw it a little bit toward the tail end of last year, but it wasn't something that we saw to start this year just because of how he was utilized with Terry, Tyler, Jimmy, and Bam. When you have your 4 best scorers or 4 of your best scorers on the floor together, you're probably not going to get many touches, especially when you're not playing with guys who are natural playmakers like Terry, like Tyler, they're just not natural playmakers. And so that I didn't think that he was being utilized to his best ability. And I think you saw a more confident Nico yesterday than you have the previous 8 games of the season. And so that's something that I'm looking out for him specifically. In terms of Larson, just keep doing what he's been doing. Like, I know Lou is probably the biggest Larson fan that I know. But like just him, you know, cutting, being a good enough spacer, like him defending at the level that he's defending at. Like he's you don't get called a plug and play player for no reason when by your head coach before you even step onto an NBA court. Like just keep taking advantage of your opportunity in the limited minutes. And you're going to continue to keep seeing more playing time. Like with Ware, just be a functional backup big. Don't be Thomas Bryant. Just do the little things. You know, he blocked 3 shots yesterday. Yesterday was probably his best game of the season to this point. Just keep getting those reps in and keep learning from some of these guys that you're going to be going up against. Like he's going to be going up against Miles Turner in a couple of days. That's going to offer a different challenge because he's a floor spacing big. Like that's going to be something for him that it's going to be useful for him. And just I want to see like these guys just continue to get reps, continue to learn from their mistakes. And that's just not the rookies, that's everyone involved because they're going to be getting this opportunity as long as Jimmy's out. And they're going to need to take advantage of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we, obviously this is a small sample size with a lot of guys' minutes and stuff, and early only 9 games into the season. But when I was looking at some stats today on PBP stats today, Jaime has struggled on the court this season with Jimmy. His true shooting percentage with Jimmy on the court is 29% compared to 58.8% when he's playing without Jimmy. And I just think him trying to replicate some of what Caleb did and Caleb's success with Jimmy doesn't really suit him. Caleb was a little bit more comfortable shooting the 3, and Jaime, that's still, he's made strides there, but that's still not a big part of his game. I want to see him play with more shooters, and Jimmy not playing with him, gives him another advantage to play some more minutes with like Duncans and Tylers and Burks, guys like that who can space the floor a little better. So, and he gets more responsibility. We saw the best stretches of his season last year were when he was featured on the ball and less in the corner, getting, like you said, getting to the mid post, making plays at the elbow, in pick and roll and stuff. And I'd like to see him set some screens too, to get, some ghost screens, look for the slips and try to catch the ball on the move and take advantage of that, of bent defenses in that regard. So, I love that pick. Nico, as you mentioned, that's my guy. I love when they play through him, not necessarily for him to get the score or the assist, but for him to look for the advantage and play like a soccer style. Like I think of total football. Like he might not get the goal, he might not get the assist that gets the goal, but he's gonna get the ball in the right spot, and it's on the rest of you guys to do to make the next move, take advantage of the defense, put pressure on the rim. And I think that's one of their best bits of offense is when he's catching the ball in the mid court and semi transition and tertiary transition and pushing. And I think that they're going to play teams that want to control, want to push pace in Detroit and Indiana. So there will be opportunities to run. I thought yesterday they showed some horrible execution in transition, to the point where Alf was even saying they should just shoot threes. Lou, in regards to the pace, do you think they should be a push team without Jimmy, opportunistic team, or do the SPO and be 26th in pace, even though he said he wants to run?
It's funny because I'm looking and the Heat are 25th in pace.
Yeah,
they'd probably be 26 if Jimmy played yesterday. So that's pretty funny. But no, I expect them to run. I expect them to get some more possessions. Kevin Love really helps them run in general, even when Jimmy's there, just because he loves the hit ahead passes, and he is a very important cog in just their ability to get out on breaks. Another thing that's going to help them get out on breaks is forcing turnovers. That's an area where I fully expect them to, take advantage of the Pistons in particular, the Pistons they have the second worst turnover percentage in the league. So I expect them to try to force their hand and get them at rush them and get some of these turnovers. So I do think that they're going to play fast. I do think they should play fast, and in large part defensively, it's going to be creating turnovers and also crashing the glass. Like those are two things that really, really can hurt them. Sometimes it's just like they don't force much. This year they've been forcing turnovers. In previous years, that was never their MO. Like they were always like, just stay in front of them, force them to take tough shots. I think this year, due to the lack of point of attack defenders on this team, they almost have to tell them, like, gamble a little bit more, because if you don't, it doesn't matter if it's contested, because it's not going to be. With that being said, man, I would love to see Pell get some play tomorrow. Like, I know I'm such a big Pell guy, and everybody just, to some point, they roll their eyes when I keep bringing him up. But like realistically, I do think him and Highsmith are probably your best two-way wings in terms of like low usage guys. And those, I'm not talking about like he's nowhere near the wing that Jaime is, or even that Jimmy is, obviously. But just in terms of what his impact is to be a primary defender, or guard that. He's been versatile. He's shown you he can guard 1 through 4. Has it been perfect? No, he's a rookie, but he's shown you some of these things that make Highsmith so needed on this team. Forcing turnovers and stuff of that nature. So I'm curious to see how many minutes he gets, because honestly, Josh Richardson played 20 minutes too many yesterday. And it's little things like that where I want to see these young guys actually get an opportunity to play against this team, because the Pistons are also a young team. It's not like they're going to be going up against seasoned vets. It's a nice way for them to get their feet wet before the Pacers on Friday. Not saying that they should just look ahead to Indiana, but to see what they can give you against Detroit tomorrow, and then assess what you need to from that game.
Absolutely. And I just looked at the box score. They tied a season high in steals against the Pistons with 14. They tied that last night against Minnesota for the season high. So I love that point you made, opportunity to run. Kevin Love and Tyler and Nico being some of their best outlet passers. I love the opportunistic and chances to run. And I think, if they're missing Jalen, you have the big advantage. I would love to see Bam get out and run, get some easy buckets, get himself going that way. I would love, especially more if he gives it up early, so he can be on the receiving end and not try to take Jamal Murray, Euro step Jamal Murray and go 2-on-1 the other way for a 4-point swing. But Matt, what besides turnovers and deflections, what advantages do you think they could take this week against Detroit and Indiana?
Something that I didn't expect to see. I'm looking at it right now. Cleaning the Glass has Miami as the 6th best offensive rating in transition this year, which is, they were 23rd last year, just for perspective. And it feels like they've been bottom of the league each of the previous 2 years. And so even without Jimmy, again, it allows guys to play more freely. Their process in the half court is bad enough as it is sometimes, especially when, I'm not going to name names, but you guys know who I'm talking about. The ball's in certain players' hands, particularly one of the TNT guards. They just make it harder on themselves than it actually is sometimes in the half court. And there sometimes just isn't much structure. And so if you're able to get out in transition, and if you're able to get out and run, even off of and again, I think they've cleaned up the rebounding a little bit these last couple of games, and obviously Kevin being back helps that a lot. And so if they're able to get those rebounds and just get out in transition, even when they're not creating turnovers, it will help a lot. And if they're able just to have those advantages, whether it's a 4-on-3 or a 5-on-4 in semi-transition or whatever the case is, those are opportunities that you should take advantage of when you have them presented to you, especially again when you're going up against an Indiana team on Friday, who they love to play they love to play with plays. They love to play with in transition, and they're also one of the worst defensive teams in the entire league. And so it gives them that opportunity to take advantage of that. And so that's really what I'm looking out for, because as long as Jimmy's out, again, this team is going to play more freely. They're going to play faster. And you need guys who are not going to be indecisive, and you need guys who are just going to, make the right moves and take advantage of these opportunistic looks when they're presented to them, because that's ultimately what needs to happen if you want to, consistently generate good offense, not only in the half court, but just in general.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I'm surprised that they're that good in transition. And it only makes sense that their offense is so bad because they're 25th in pace. Just not, using their skills and their advantage. But I'm very excited for tomorrow night. We're going to be doing a post-game show, me and Lou, and we'll see who else joins us tomorrow night. But Matt, it's been a lot of fun having you on the show. Where can the people find you?
You can find me at mph_a24_ on Twitter. I know that's like very complicated, and I probably need to change that at some point. HotHoops.com, VendettaSportsMedia.com, MountainWestConnection.com, WatchPlayback.tv /5RSN. We watch every Heat game with the guys over at 5 Reasons Sports, so please go check my stuff out there. I'm all over the place, man. I'm doing a lot of different things for a lot of different people, man. But thank you all for having me on. I had a great time.
Absolutely, Matt. And that's MPH like miles per hour _824_ on Twitter. Matt's a great follow, does a great job breaking down the Heat, and he's a Mountain West Conference sicko. So if you like college basketball, he'll talk about that at random hours. You also talk about the Sky Force with Major Passons as well.
Correct. Yeah, the Force with Matt and Major. We just released our pod today. The Sky Force played their first game on Saturday. They play another one tomorrow against the Iowa Wolves. They just started that season out. So yeah, man, we've been doing stuff since we were like the tail end of last year, leading into the off season. Obviously, the summer league was like our championship, literally, because they won the summer league championship. But yeah, man, I'm all over the place.
Absolutely. And just for those who aren't following the Sky Force, I saw Kashad had a really good game. You want to give a quick rundown on the highlights from last night?
Yeah, Kashad had a great game. Josh was very, very up and down, more so down at the end of the game.
That's a Josh thing for the Heat.
Yeah. We got the full Josh Christopher experience in one game. Isaiah Stevens looked good. He had 18 points, 9 assists. Malik Williams, who was the guy that was called up by the Raptors towards the end of last season, he had 27 and 15. He had 6 offensive rebounds, I believe. I'm trying to think if I missed anything else. Obviously, Caleb Daniels, for those of you who followed the summer league team, he was there. He had some productive minutes, even though he didn't light up the stat sheet. Nasir Little was there. He did not shoot the ball well at all. Tony Snell was there, just being Tony Snell. Trying to if I missed anything, but yeah, no, there was a few standouts. It was the debut of the new overtime format, which is it's not like an actual overtime. It's the first to 7 straight points, and so that was interesting to see that play itself out for the first time in the G League. No, man, it was a great game, very, very competitive game between 2 good G League teams, and I'm guessing we're going to see that a lot this year, especially with who the Heat have in their G League system.
Yeah. Love to hear that. I saw one of Kashad's highlight dunks. I follow Matt and Crab Photographer for my G League news and highlights, and hearing Kashad and Stevens played so well warmed my heart. Lou, where can the people find you?
It's at Saucy Takes, no spaces, with a Z at the end. Mostly on Twitter. Shout out Blue Sky. Find me over there on Blue Sky now. I think we're shipping over, man. We got to be everywhere. We got to be everywhere too. I'm trying to be like Matt, man. I'm trying to be everywhere.
Matt's got too much time. He's used all the lights in his for all those plugs and other resources. He's got none left in his house. He's got to save electricity where he can. You can find me Franky G _ Franky with a Y on Twitter, and on Blue Sky I am Franky G. I finally got the non_ at. I'm hoping there's a celebrity. If you've ever seen The Italian Job, There's a Spanish guy who rents out the cars. His name is Frankie G. He goes by his acting name is Frankie G, and he took my and he doesn't. I don't think he acts anymore, but I can't get that damn and Elon's Twitter won't give that back to me. So I have to deal with the underscore, but Blue Sky already superior. I got the let's hope for some health first of all for the Heat tomorrow night and for an exciting game. Let's hope for a good win. Shout out to our sponsor Robinhood. Hope we did you guys justice, and we'll see you guys tomorrow night after the game. Justice better.